Hello and welcome to Reaching the Summit on Business RadioX. We are broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio in the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. Reaching the Summit is presented by Pinnacle Custom Signs. Get a more elevated look with your business signage. Visit pinnaclecustomsigns.com. I'm Don Conklin, and along with my wife Teresa, every month on Reaching the Summit you'll meet successful business leaders who have climbed the mountain and reached the summit in their profession. We will talk to them about their journey, the challenges they faced, and the lessons and insights they have learned along the way. Today we have two guests. Our first guest is Maureen Kornowa. She is with the Home of Hope at Gwinnett Shelter. She is up in northern Gwinnett County. And we also have Dave Vizzi with the P4 Foundation. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me as well.
So I think let's start off with a basic description of what your business is. So, Dave, if you want to go ahead and start, tell us what P4 Foundation is, how it was started, and what your vision in life is for P4 Foundation.
Sure. First off, I want to thank you for having us this morning and allowing us to share our story and what we do and how we help the community. The P4 Foundation was founded in 2014 when my wife and I, Tony Ann, our 16-year-old son was diagnosed with an incurable cancer, CML, which is normally found in adults over the age of 60, sorry. And he was 16 years old at the time, so it was very rare. At the time, to make a long story short, when we were in the hospital, Gino saw other children and seen that there weren't as much support system around them that he had. He had his parents, us, he had his sister, his grandparents, his student body of the kids that he played baseball with at Mill Creek High School. Just everybody in general, the community was around him supporting him. And he saw there was other kids that didn't have that. And he wanted to help. During that journey of a month in the hospital and during that period, he decided he wanted to do something to help other people. And that's when we had started the P4 Foundation. And the P4 Foundation, what we do is we work directly with children and families that have been impacted by childhood cancer. We provide support, hope, faith-filled encouragement, as well as tips on health and wellness. The key thing that Gino wanted to make sure that we did was if we started something and we help people, the whole thing was, there's a whole support system financially, emotionally, and mentally when you're going through any kind of challenge. And I think that, as a young adult at the time when he was diagnosed and understood this, he made me and my wife realize that, we raised a pretty good young man already at 16 and that wanted to help others in his life. And during this battle, I think it was part of his healing was to give back and do for others. And we've been doing it now for almost 6 years. And we love helping the other kids in the community that are battling cancer and their families and getting the chance to meet them. But the most important thing is that our organization is based upon support. And again, you never know what you're going to need in any day and time when children or families are going through this. So the P4 Foundation was the name P4. What does that mean? P4 stands for pray for. One of the things that Gino wanted to do is he's very faithful, he's very spiritual, and he wanted to make sure no matter, regardless of the religion or the belief, that we pray for healing and a cure for those children. And that has helped us as parents get through it. Number one, most importantly, running the organization, it gives us that feeling of giving back to the community and being able to give back to people that are in need. And that's what we do at the P4 Foundation is basically look for what those needs are of those families and give that support. Like I said, we always give the financial support, but the emotional and mental support that we can give and resources available to them is, something that, money can't buy. But we continue to grow as a foundation, as a community. And it's sad that we're growing because that means more and more kids are getting cancer around us. And that's not a good thing. And that's where we tap into the health and wellness side of it is trying to prevent. And that starts at any age. And again, you're never too old to prevent or take care of yourself to hopefully avoid some type of illness, if you will. I hope I've touched a little bit on who we are and what we do.
Yeah, you did, Dave, and it's a remarkable journey. It's fun watching how you guys have changed. I'm going to introduce Maureen. Maureen, can you tell us a little bit about Home of Hope and what you do and who you serve and why you're serving them?
Sure. So I'm Maureen Kornowa, Executive Director at Home of Hope at Gwinnett Children's Shelter. We're located out in Beaufort. We are addressing the huge homeless issue in Gwinnett County and the Metro Atlanta area. We're a transitional living facility for homeless children from birth to 17 with their young moms. The idea is to take our families from sleeping in their cars and living in extended stay hotels, keep the family unit together, and teach mom to fish. Give her the vehicle, if you will, to get out of and break the cycle of homelessness. So we call it a multi-generational approach to addressing the huge homeless issue in the Metro Atlanta area.
And that helps the children
Helps
to
the
learn
children.
how to be independent.
Right. So one of the things we do first and foremost is our kids have one job to do when a family gets accepted into our program, and they are free to be children. They do not need adult issues on the shoulders worrying about homelessness. And I'll give you an example. We had a mom sleeping in her car, living out here in North Gwinnett County, going to schools. The child was in 3rd grade, so was 8 or 9 years old. And when your mom's sleeping in her car, he's not allowed to tell anyone at school because she says the police will take you away from me. And she doesn't do it to be mean. She does it because she's terrified of losing him, and he's terrified of losing her. And there's 2 littles younger than he in the car. And so when you think about that, that child's getting picked on at the lunch table for wearing the same shirt 3 times that week because mom can't do laundry till
Right.
Saturday. I mean, it's horrible. So when our kids come into the program, we see a little shyness at first, little, careful trepidation looking out from behind mom. And then in 3 days, usually, they de-escalate. They know that they're safe, they're loved. We don't talk about adult issues. They arts and crafts, get out and play, be free to be kids, and we watch them just blossom when they come. Mom is held on a high accountability program that is designed to take her from homeless to feeling more hopeful and then ultimately to independence. And we do that by providing all the wraparound services for her while she's living and working our program.
Maureen, that's great. I've been to your campus up there. It is a fabulous campus up there. In the current situation with the pandemic and everything else going on, how is Home of Hope held on during the this time when we used to be sheltered in place and with your family up there?
That's a great question. So when this all came down, I had a lot of the staff that was everybody had questions. How are we going to do this? What does it look like? Well, fortunately, we have a 45-acre campus. One of our houses, we had 3 families graduate out, move into their apartments. So it was kind of serendipitous the way it worked out, if that's the right word. We were able to keep the empty house, clean it, and save it for a quarantine should we have a test positive case. We reduced our capacity from 20 families at a time down to 15, leaving house 2 available should someone get sick and need to be quarantined. Closing was never an option for us because we'd have had 12, 15 families who would be homeless again with nowhere to go. And those beautiful children, it just wasn't even an option. So the staff was literally almost cut in half. We were down to 7, and we operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There were those that took the leave shelter in place at home, and the rest of us on campus said, well, we'll just everybody learn to cook, transport, do whatever had to be done, and that's how we did it. We also, as we brought in new families, we quarantined those families in house 1 for 14 days before they came down to the main building we call the general population, where everybody we know has sheltered in place and stayed put. So it really worked out really well, and knock wood, and thank God, so far so good. It's different now that the ban's been lifted because now our residents are coming and going. So it's hand washing stations, masks, gloves if they wish to wear them. But in common areas, everyone wears masks.
Us in the business community have been dealing with this for a couple of months now. And, we always think about how we deal with our customers. But, for a nonprofit and a resident organization like you have, it's also very tough. And I find it amazing that you actually were able to place 3 families, through the entire crisis. That's, hats off to you and things like that. That's great.
Yeah, they were ready to go. I will tell you this, what we're going to see, which has already started, people who have never been homeless before or in this situation before, and I'll give you an example. A very, very large, well-known real estate company has an employee who became an agent last fall. She didn't make enough to, barely made it through. And then January, February, she had 3 or 4 deals in the pipeline. They fell apart with COVID. Couldn't pay her rent, and there she is, a single mom with a 10-year-old. She's been on our campus serving for days of service, I'll say, and she's now a resident in our program to get back on her feet. So I think as this plays out, we're going to see more and more people whose companies couldn't reopen, and people who are willing to work, that their world has fallen apart, and we will be there to get them back on their feet.
Dave, could you tell us a little bit about the support with the coronavirus situation, the pandemic, how that's impacted you guys as well?
Absolutely. So, one of the hardest thing is, we're not able to do events that we normally do on a yearly basis to generate the income to support these families and the foundation. So, but, we still have the generosity of a lot of people in our community that are still, donating to the organization and supporting us. But most importantly, we're finding, and just like Maureen said, this pandemic has changed things dramatically. Not only the challenges that normally families deal with, in whether it be the situation of the homelessness or a child dealing with cancer. When a child's diagnosed with cancer, either mom or dad need to be the caregiver. Someone needs to be home. So someone's leaving a job potentially, or a loss of income. Well, in the case that we're finding, we have several families right now that not only has mom stopped working and has become the caregiver of the child over the last 6 to 7 months, but now dad has lost their job as well. And we're trying to support them as a family financially wherever we can. Obviously, we're not really concerned right now that we used to be before, more on medical bills and different things like that. What we're trying to do now is just to try to get the support to the family so mom and dad can pay the rent or the mortgage, make sure they're getting the right drugs for the child that is needed, whether it be chemotherapy or ongoing, plus the siblings. They need food, they need different things. So we've kind of expanded our focus, if you will, during the pandemic that we normally focus on, and we're there more for the family as a whole and finding out what their individual needs are. And every family's been affected by this differently. And one of the hardest things that we're finding is, parents are very nervous and scared because of their child's, distressed immune system. They are the target of this whole thing. And we have tried to give them everything that we could to give them to be safe, to be healthy, be strong, but they still have to go out. They need to get to the hospital. They need to go for treatment. They need to see the doctors. And these parents are scared. So, and we deal with the same thing. We haven't left. I mean, Gino being, even though he's 21 years old and he knows, and he hasn't been out, he hasn't done those things. He had to quit his job, not quit his job, but he had to take a leave of absence of his job because of that. So I can't imagine having a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old that, is really, touches their face all the time, putting their fingers in their mouth, and they're dealing with this situation. So it's education. It's a lot of things. We have changed as an organization, like I said, and maybe repeating myself, we've changed a lot of our procedures. We've changed a lot of our efforts, if you will, during this pandemic. So it's new to us. It's new to all of us. This is crazy. Obviously, it's unprecedented times, but this is all new. None of us know what's right and what's wrong to do. And I'm sure Maureen's dealing with it as well. In their campus, like you said, you're trying to keep people, safe. You're trying to do the right things, and you're hoping everybody's following the rules.
Right.
And
well, Dave,
that's one. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just like your organization, we don't have any government funding either. So we rely heavily on the general public, our donors, such as Pinnacle Custom Signs. So the great people who help support us, grants and foundations. Well, right now, donor development is really key in the nonprofit world because corporations that used to give because it was a socially responsible thing to do have shifted their philanthropy dollars to their marketing budgets, from their lips to my ears. So it's a strategic move on their part, which I understand. However, when you rely on the public for almost a third of your annual budget, and the stock market's in the toilet, and people don't know what's going to happen the next few months, and there are people who normally give are pulling back, I've got to look at next year's almost $1.2 million budget and say, my gosh, how are we going to do this? We have to shift our thinking too. And it's terrifying. The only saving grace is that the Lord's got us in the palm of his hand and we're all in this together and we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, again, you're so right. We're the same boat. Actually, our budget is not as high as yours because we're not providing the housing and different things like that. But, there are needs. There's needs every day. We don't know when families are going to contact us that their child was diagnosed with cancer. So again, there's no planning sometimes, but the overall sense of what I'm seeing, I'm noticing people that didn't give before are giving, and some of them are giving larger than they did before. And as you mentioned, with Pinnacle Signs and the whole Conklin, and they're 3 generations long of support that we've had since we started this organization. Teresa's parents, to Teresa and Don and their children, have been helping and supporting us. Just every little bit, like you said. I've always see take $1 from 100 people than 100 from one,
Right.
Because if that ever stops, we're in trouble. And
Right.
I've always kept that with the organization as well. Give as little as you possibly can. It adds up. And sometimes, even in your situation, grants and different things like that, processes are getting harder. People aren't in the offices to process these grants and these requests. So this is going to change us as well as nonprofits. Maureen, I don't know if you're dealing with that yet as well, but some of the processes of putting applications in to get these grants or funds, people aren't working and they're not processing them.
That's very true.
It's going to take longer. So again, we're in unprecedented times, and we need to make changes. But most of all, like you said, if you have faith, and it's all going to work out. We're in it together, and it's all going to happen, and we're going to be able to help the families that we continue to support, I believe.
And I agree with you, Dave. I mean, Teresa thinks I'm a little bit too Pollyanna. If you look at the
Absolutely.
Winnie the Pooh characters, I'm Tigger. I have Tigger all over my office because I bounce all over the place, and I am very optimistic about things. And I do think it's going to come roaring back, and I think that a lot of the fundraisers you guys have had to put on hold. And Maureen, I think about your big fundraiser that, thank the Lord that it happened before it happened, right? Right before
the barbecue festival,
the barbecue, right
the week before the shutdown,
right.
Or 2 weeks before.
So, and I know they're going to come back, and there's going to be people that have to give. I understand there's going to be a smaller pool because of the unemployment and everything else, and like that. But we've got to be planning for the future and how we raise funds for the nonprofits in the organization. Dave, tell us a little bit about your big fundraisers and what your next big things coming up are from a fundraising standpoint.
Sure. So every year we do an annual home run derby, which we usually host at Gwinnett, at Coolray Field with the Gwinnett Stripers play. That's actually it would be our 5th annual, which got canceled in March. That's an event that we usually raise anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, somewhere in that ballpark, which was, put on hold. And we don't know if we're going to be able to actually have it this year due to the fact that the participants are the kids that played baseball in the Gwinnett County school system. So those kids aren't going to be participating. We're not going to be able to do it, we don't think, this year, because when you start getting past the summer, they're going to play some travel sports, different things like that, so they're not going to be available. And they're going to be training for their next upcoming season, or they've already left for college.
Dave, so, what is that derby? Tell me what it is, what you do at the
Sure.
fundraiser.
So what we do is it's a fundraiser where we have participants come in and get to do a home run derby. So what we do is they get 10 pitches and they try to hit the baseball out of the park. For every home run that they hit, we give back 10% of all of our proceeds back to Make-A-Wish, Georgia. Make-A-Wish Georgia is a partner of ours. It was something that they were there for our son, and that was something that he wanted to always give back to. So our home run derby is based on giving back to other organizations. But the home run derby basically is people coming in, participating, hitting home runs, generating a lot of fun in the community, bringing the community together, but most importantly, we bring our P4 kids out so people get to see and hear their stories, to know who we are and what we do in the community. That's what that home run derby is more about, is getting the community out to see who we are and what we do, and to support those kids. I hope I answered your question.
You did. We have a lot to talk about. I'm going to call you when the show is over.
Oh, awesome. Great. And then we do a casino night, which is an annual event. This would have been our 3rd year. We were scheduled for in October. We're not sure yet if it's going to happen. I really doubt it. Obviously, I think all events this year may be put on hold. But this year, the event that we are going to be hosting is our Pinnacle Custom Sign golf tournament. It's our 7th annual golf tournament that we're putting on. Pinnacle Custom Sign is our lead sponsor. It's basically an event that we do at Lake Lanier. We usually get between 120 to 144 golfers. We raise anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 at our golf events. This year, we're hoping to have it again in September. We have a date tentative right now at Lake Lanier. We're going to update our website for that event. We're hoping it's going to be even larger because people are finally going to be able to get out and have some fun. And I think we have to kind of see how things go over the next couple of months, Don, to answer your question. We're just not sure when that next event's going to be. I got to be honest with you. We're kind of just, our board has been communicating and talking about it. But most importantly, we got to be so careful because bringing the kids out, we just have to be so cautious. Yeah. And again, without bringing the kids, it kind of, it dilutes what we're trying to do.
I agree with you. Event. Yeah, we had an event for our team and brought one of your kids out, and it's powerful message, awesome. Right? And it's interesting because when we were setting up this meeting, and we were asking Maureen and Dave to come, and Dave says, "Can I do it via Zoom?" And I'm thinking to myself, the stay-at-home order is lifted, and all of a sudden, as I was saying that, I'm like, Gino's at home. Yeah, I'm sure he hasn't left the house in 45 days, and so I guess the question I've got also, Dave, is have your kids been able to get the care that they need, even with the hospitals really going full bore on the COVID thing?
Yes, we are. Being down at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, CHOA, whether it be at Angleson or Scottish Rite, they're unbelievable staff. These people are incredible, and they've been serving all the families. We haven't had one family yet that has said that they haven't had the opportunity to see their doctor or get their care that they've needed. But also, we're keeping in contact with our families to make sure if there's anything that they need, whether it be, gas cards, different things like that, or whatever they may need to make sure that they're getting down there, or, transportation, setting up transportation for them to get there. But everybody has seemed to be able to get their treatments and everything during this time. The hospitals have been great. They're not going to the general hospitals, most of these kids are going to the Children's Healthcare. So it's a little bit different environment there. And then when you go to, these other, like North Georgia or Gwinnett Medical or Emory.
Yeah, they're probably more geared towards filling those needs a little better.
Yeah, and plus, one of the things with the kids are allowing parents to go with them, at least one parent. These kids, God forbid if they weren't able to have at least a parent with them or a caregiver. These adults going to the hospital, they don't have anyone. Yeah. And that's sad enough, but I can't imagine a child having to go through something without a parent or a caregiver.
Dave, I've got to talk to you after. I'll just tell you, I've walked your journey. I have a daughter who's now 28, got diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer at 16. I've done the Scottish Rite. We've done Make-A-Wish, 2 years of chemo and surgeries, and I've been on your journey, and so, gosh, we have so much to talk about.
Wow, I'm looking so forward to it. I mean, I'm not looking forward to that. We have the same story, but I'm looking forward to speaking with you and see how we could potentially maybe do some things together.
And she was a leader, took her diagnosis and, got at the forefront and, used it to lead and inspire other kids. It's just amazing. So I think God makes no mistakes putting us together on the show today, too. So I think when great people come together doing God's good work, great things happen. So
hey, listen, when you talk about faith, I got to tell you, Don and Teresa and their family, are the pinnacle of that, and you use pinnacle signs. Right. So it's funny because I met the funny thing is I met them through their parents, through Teresa's parents at the church. I was volunteering in the kitchen, doing some work with some things that we had at the church going on, and I got the chance to meet Teresa's parents, Roseanne and Joe, and they ended up supporting my son immediately once they heard his story and what we were doing. They were incredible. But faith brought us together. Yeah. It was the church that made it happen. And it's grown since there, like you just said.
Well, it was independent because we met Dave through business. And then they met my parents doing something at church. And we were talking one day and my parents were telling me about this charity. And I said, I know him. So it was really funny how it worked out. So it works out real well.
It's interesting that Dave's last name is Vizzi. And Teresa's maiden name is Di Benedetto, so they have a lot in common from a food standpoint. And
of course we do.
That. So, hey, Dave, there is one cool story about yours and Gino's journey when you went overseas and met someone. Can you share that with us?
Sure. So, real quick, when Gino when Make-A-Wish came to Gino, they had said, listen, we want you to think of 3 things possible that you could do, whether it be a place, a person, or someone you'd want to meet. What is it that you want to do? So Gino was a baseball player. He loved baseball. Gino was ranked in the nation actually as a sophomore baseball player at Mill Creek, and he wanted to participate in some upper events. And cancer took that away from him, but Gino did not allow that to dictate his life, obviously. But he took baseball and has built what we have today. So we all thought, well, listen, he loves the Yankees. He loves Derek Jeter. He's going to want to meet Derek Jeter. And my daughter at the time, she was sitting there. She goes, great, now we're going to have to meet stupid Derek Jeter. She was young. She didn't want to see Derek Jeter. She didn't care less, right? So he was in the dining room. He was speaking to the 2 volunteers, and they were going through everything. And, we were sitting in the living area, but we could hear him. And he said to the woman, my first option is I would love to meet Pope Francis. I would love to meet Pope Francis so I can get a blessing to cure myself and to help other kids with cancer. And I got to be honest with you guys, I lost it. I really did. I started crying. I didn't realize that what we had. I never thought that of him. I never thought that he was that spiritual. And his second thing was to go to Fiji to see this island. He wanted to go into the water. It was something, whatever it was. And his third thing was to play catch with Derek Jeter. Well, I got to be honest with you. It was like a 3-week period went by, and my wife and I said, there's no way we're going to meet the Pope. And the funny thing was Pope Francis was coming to Philadelphia. So we got a call. It was about 3 weeks later. We got a call from Make-A-Wish, and they said, Mr. Vizzi, this is so-and-so at Make-A-Wish. Do you guys have passports? And I'm like, yeah, but what do you need passports to go to Philadelphia? If we're going to see the Pope. I'm sorry, I forgot that. She goes, we've been working on Gino's wish to meet Pope Francis. Do you have passports? And I said, well, what do we need passports to go to Philadelphia? They go, no, you're going to the Vatican. We've already set it up. Gino's going to meet Pope Francis at the Vatican. So I lost everything inside me. I was so happy. It was like, this is a God thing. This is incredible. So about 2 weeks of a process went on, and they came and they surprised Gino to let him know that we were going to go to Italy. We're going to be there for a week. We were going to be able to meet Pope Francis, and that Gino would be part of a special mass that Pope Francis was hosting that day. And Gino and my wife were able to be in a special audience to meet Pope Francis. But the most important thing that was incredible was during this process, Gino asked the people from Make-A-Wish, he said, can I ask you a question? We bring one more person with us. And Gino's like, they're like, well, your family's already coming. He goes, no, I'd like to invite my priest, Father Eric from Prince of Peace, because he makes me love church, and he has given me where I am today. And they were fine with it, but they weren't going to pay. So we paid as a family for him. we didn't care. But Father Eric paid his own transportation, but we were doing whatever we could do. But we had the best time, and he was able to attend with us. And Gino got to be in that special audience. It was maybe 100 people that Pope Francis was there to give the blessing to. And Gino got everything that he wanted, and he did get a blessing because you know what? He has an incurable cancer, but he's still with us today, and he's still doing the things that he has to do. So I believe that it made the whole difference in the world.
That is an amazing
he's a world changer.
Story. Amazing story. These kids are amazing.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why a percentage of all of our proceeds go back to Make-A-Wish. That's Gino's part of his Give Back program. And that's something that we're structuring as an organization this year about more back to Make-A-Wish, more to St. Jude's for research, and then percentages to our kids and families. So it's been incredible. And again, like I said to you, without the families like the Di Benedettos and the Conklins and the Pinnacle Signs and the people in our community, they have made us who we are. And we have touched so many families. We have served, and it may not sound like a lot, we've served over 80 families already in Gwinnett County. And that's not counting was outside of Gwinnett County, people in Florida, California children, people throughout the country, but just in Gwinnett County. So you probably know someone that's been affected. You don't even realize it, or your kids don't realize it. And it's really neat. Like you said, look at your daughter. I mean, you've been involved with it. And it's a very small world, but it's really not.
Yep, she was also, Dave, she was also at Mill Creek. We also did our treatment at Scottish Rite. We also did Make-A-Wish, and she had a fundraiser to pay her wish forward and raised enough money for 4 more kids to have wishes, and she sponsored those, and then is now a wish volunteer and goes into homes and grants wishes for children. And she too has an incurable cancer. And by the grace
That
of
is so
God,
incredible.
12
We need to
years
talk.
later, we're here.
This
I'm
is
telling you,
crazy.
we got to talk. We got to talk later.
This is
So,
awesome.
Maureen, since we keep talking about kids, why don't you tell us about some of your kids and also what makes your program a little different?
Yeah, so what makes our program at Home of Hope different is that we live communally. Like each family has their own room with their own private bathroom, but it's common living areas, game room, playroom, cafeteria. So we get to see our families. We step into their daily lives. So the kids, first and foremost, we try and make it so they don't know they're in a shelter. I will tell you, around the holidays, we had a group of 4th, 5th grade girls came in one afternoon, and our director of operations was down the hall, and they were all a couple weeks before Christmas, chitter-chattering, all excited, and I heard Renita talking to them and laughing. And after their conversation, I said, what was that all about? And the girls were telling her that they had learned that there were homeless people and that they needed shirts and shampoo and soap and things that homeless people needed, and they were collecting them from school to donate to a place. And so Renita was laughing and said, okay, we'll get you some stuff to take with you. And they had no clue that they lived at this shelter.
No different.
No. So that kind of makes us unique in that we get to step into their daily lives and make their stay with us special. We have them for such a short time, up to a year, such a short time, but we know that we touch their lives forever by the notes and cards we get. So the hardest thing is watching the kids leave and cry when they have to go because they love being with us. So
Do they ever come back?
Families come back, moms come back and visit. Not as many as I would like, but we invite them back for holidays, parties, and adopt them back for Christmas as long as they need.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So,
Maureen, tell us a little bit about some of your fundraisers. I know you do some annual things, so
yes.
and they're a lot of fun. So
A lot of fun. So, one of the biggest ones we have every year, and all of my events are also sponsored by Pinnacle Custom Sign, is the Sip and Swine Barbecue Festival, held the first weekend in March every year at Coolray Field. It is a KCBS, Kansas City Barbecue Society Pitmaster sanctioned cook-off event. We see between 10 and 13,000 people this year. They were saying there were closer to 15,000. And we held it the first weekend in March. So if you can imagine, we got in right before the craziness started. Then we do a Diamonds event every year, Diamonds and Disco, Diamonds and Dancing, usually at Chateau Elan. That's looking different for us this year because, obvious reasons. And this year, for the first time, we are having a golf tournament. The Buford North Gwinnett Kiwanis are doing their golf tournament to benefit Home of Hope.
Okay.
Also at Lake Lanier Islands in September 9th. By the way, if you're looking for your date, we're already there, Dave. And so we're doing that this year. And then I'm doing a fashion show and luncheon at the 1818 Club, and we'll have our moms and kids walk and invite
Oh, how
high
cool
school.
is that for them?
Yeah. We're going to partner with a boutique out of Winder to do fall clothes and things like that.
Well,
Whoever
that
wants
sounds
to
like a
come.
lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, and a character breakfast. We're going to do that. So
I'll be available.
October.
I'll be available.
Yeah, for a character.
He can be Tigger.
I'll be my Tigger.
Oh, there you go.
It's interesting, both yours and Dave's journey, Maureen, and the whole purpose of this radio show is reaching the summit, business leaders, right? And you lead charities, but you're also business leaders, and we always talk about. I advise a lot of new businesses, and Teresa will tell you she cringes when I say this, but I always tell people,
which one's he going to say?
your first 2 years will be 2 years of hell. And I say, I really don't care whether you think you're going to be successful or not, but in 2 years, you have to establish yourself, establish your brand, establish your funding, and establish who you are. And there's going to be sleepless nights. There's going to be a lot of times where you think to yourself, what the heck did we do here? We never had any of those, did we, Teresa?
Yeah.
We had plenty.
Okay. Not only me, Teresa, we also had our family in the business, so it was like we had a couple of Cortez moments where we burned the ships, and it was like we're going to succeed or not succeed, right? But both you and Dave have had that challenge. I know you came into a new situation that you turned around, but Dave, talk to us about how you started P4 and the challenges that you overcame in the business acumen that you used to be able to overcome those to build a successful organization at a P4.
Okay, well, it's funny. You get to choose sometimes what you do, right? You get to decide where you want to work, what you want to do. This wasn't a choice. This was like a calling. It was something I had to do because it was something my son wanted, and he had asked me to help him do it. So I'm going to take you back a while. So back in the late 80s, early 90s, I worked in a nonprofit organization. I was a VP of operations for a financial service organization that was a nonprofit, 501c3. I got to be honest with you. I hated this job. I got to be honest. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like to go to work. It was one of those things I didn't enjoy just because of the stress. I got to be honest with you. It was a stressful job. It was very tough. But I did it for 5 years. I was under contract. I had to stay there. But what it did was it gave me all the tools I needed to understand nonprofits, 501c3s, the laws, the rules, and all the things you had to do to set it up, to run it, to operate it, to keep it going, to be within the guidelines of the IRS. So back in 93 or 94, I no longer did that. And I stayed in the financial service industry. But then when Gino got diagnosed, he said, Dad, I want to start a nonprofit. I want to start something to help other kids. Remember, I was telling you guys this. So I was like, all right, well, this is my out now. This is my way of dealing with my son's cancer. There's no baseball no more. That's where my life was, right? I loved watching my son play. I always thought he was going to play college ball, play professionally. So that was taken away from me, which was selfish in my mind, right? But it was my way of dealing with my son's cancer and hoping that he's going to be with us for as long as he possibly can. So the foundation actually got me kicking the butt to get going, to get off of my, feeling bad for myself and my son and everything else. Well, I got to focus on this organization and help others. So with that knowledge I had from the nonprofit, I was able to bring that to P4. I was able to call the attorney from the nonprofit that I knew from years ago. He was able to help me to get to 501c3 approved. I have a good friend of mine that was a 501c3 accountant. We came together as a team, filed everything with the IRS. We were approved in like record time. I think it was like 3 months. We were approved for our 501c3. We got it done. We were up and running immediately because Gina was diagnosed in September. November, we were already approved and we were running as an organization. Wow. So I had that. God had planned this out for me. Whatever when you say that, you have a path. Well, my path was paved for me. And it was paved in a way that I had to do this. And it was my calling. Most importantly, I had a job that I was able to take the time and do the things for these kids and focus on P4 and yet keep a business going and take care of my family. So I've been blessed to be able to do that. And blessed to be able to meet people in the community that have supported us to know that we are doing the right thing. And Maureen, you know that as well as I do. When you hear people tell you what a great job you're doing and how you've impacted others and that they want to support you, it makes you just want to grow even more. It makes you want to get out there and do more for people and others. So that's incredible. And one thing, Maureen, just so you know, you didn't take my date because I just looked at the brochure. We're set for August 30th. So we're the week before you.
Oh, there you go.
Are you guys at Lake Lanier as well?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I'll be spending a lot of time on the links at Lake Lanier,
or in the water. You're going to bring a lot of balls there, Don.
Well,
you may hit a lot of water shots.
Well, you know how you have a lower score, don't you?
Well, you bring a pencil. You play eraser.
No, you play less holes. It's an easier way of doing it. So, now, Maureen, I know you had a different challenge because you came into a situation where it was the Gwinnett Children's Shelter that was funded by the county, and then you turned that around. So tell us about that.
So going back, I've been there on campus now for 6 years this past April, and I was brought on board as the new executive director at Gwinnett Children's Shelter. All those for almost 25 years, the year I got there, Gwinnett Children's Shelter was a state contracted facility, but not a state-owned facility. And that contract had morphed into, over the years, where the children's shelter housed teenagers by state contract that came to us through DFACS and DJJ. I knew nothing about all of that. I was running another nonprofit doing God's good work, minding my own business, and apparently God has a sense of humor, and somehow they brought me over there to tour and talk. They needed to go in another direction, and they weren't sure what that was. And by the time we finished touring and talking with the board, I shared an idea that I had, saving families out of homelessness. That talk was over, and by the time that ended, they were offering me a job, and I this is a quote. Here was my response. "Oh no, not me. That would be too big for me. I wouldn't know how. I wouldn't." And he said, "Well, it sounds like you need to go pray about it." And I drove back up Toggle Road and cried back to my office at the North Gwinnett Cooperative Ministries, where I was their executive director, doing great stuff. And I was crying because I knew I had just been called to take on something huge and terrifying. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew the vision I had was clear. The journey and the path was not. I couldn't say no, and there I was. And here we are 6 years later. I will tell you, I was handed a failing business that was also on fire. And we were able to remarket, rebrand, rehire staff from within, turn the whole thing around, put new sails on that ship and go in a new direction. And I was fearful, but yet faithful. And I will tell you, many a night I laid there not sleeping, tears coming down, and I would like, "Lord, you did not bring me here to forsake me now." I knew it. Just would lay there at night, tears coming out, and all I would get was, "Just teach him to fish." Because that was the idea. Teach mom to fish. Keep that family unit together and teach mom to fish. I would just keep getting, "Just teach him to fish." And I knew the rest would come. And it was not easy those first couple years. I can't tell you, standing up into a guest speaker in front of 150 people and taking questions and 8 different hands getting up. "What makes you think you can do that? Why are you doing?" I mean, it was tough. It was a tough 2 years. How was I going to get funding? Severing ties with the state. How do you think you're going to raise this money? And a lot of times it was, I got a lot of faith. So I don't know.
Well, I think you also had what a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs have with their businesses is a vision. And that vision, since you said it was very clear to you, I think helped guide you to make the right decisions to do what you needed to do.
Vision and passion, and I hear that in Dave's voice as well. Passion drives everything I do, to leave this world a little better than I found it. And these children, the children are everything. They didn't ask to be in this situation. How do we fix it? How do we make it better? As a taxpayer, we've got to revamp a very, very broken system that enables people to stay on our need for social services. There'll always be a need for that. I know there's a lot of gray areas. Don't write me letters. It doesn't matter. I'm talking about the broken system. Home of Hope at Gwinnett Children's Shelter has developed a program that's designed to get people to independence, which saves everyone. First, those lovely children who won't know the living in their cars or extended stay hotels because mom was taught better and she passes that on to her children. And then it saves us all as taxpayers by reducing the rate of recidivism for the need of our social services. So as a taxpayer, I'd rather fund me than the current broken system that's out there. So that's another conversation that I like to say should involve some wine. I'm just saying. Sorry.
And Dave, if you had to sum up what your vision is for P4 in a sentence, what would you say it is? I mean, if you thought through it, I know you can feel it in your heart, but how would you express that in words?
It's Maureen could probably, understand this as well. You want a cure. You want a cure for childhood cancer. No child should have to go through this. No family should have to go through this. No parent should have to go through this. No parent should see their child pass before them. And what we want to do is, provide hope, faith, and for healing and a cure. That's all we want. And I don't know if we're going to see it quickly or what have you, but we're going to keep fighting for one to avoid this and us having to have an organization like this to support these kids while they're going through treatments and ongoing. And so what we see as a vision is that we see growing to support as many families as we can, get the word out that, childhood cancer is so important to our government as well. Just an FYI, only 4% of funding for cancer goes towards childhood cancer research. All right, that's ridiculous. All right, that's something that parents have been fighting for years, and they're not heard. The government is, I think, making some new campaigns to put more money towards childhood research. Some of the treatments that these kids are going through are from the 70s, still 80s. Nothing's changed, and they're still going through it. That's why 60% of our children get their cancer returns, or they have other elements in their life, organ issues or other things that occur, elements. So our vision is to make a change. My son has always said, I want to be a world changer. I want to change the world. I want to make a difference. And he's doing it. It takes little steps, right? Little at a time. But the more we do it, we see the P4 Foundation supporting families throughout the country, growing as an organization. Of course, that's a big vision. But just to make an impact on a daily basis, that's our vision. Somehow impacting a family, somehow every day. And that's something that I think the Conklins are about too. You guys impact us all the time. And again, I know we're getting towards the end, but I want to kudos to you and your family and your children and your parents. You guys are some of the most giving people. Pinnacle Signs, you guys, anytime I've asked for anything, you've had it done for me. But most importantly, I enjoy coming to see you. I enjoy seeing, Teresa. Not so much Don, but I have to deal with him. I got to see him. But overall, I mean, you guys are always speaking faith too. And I mean, every time I see Don, he's always talking about the men's club or something to give back. And this guy's busy, crazy, but he's always doing other things. He's always giving back. He's always doing more. And he's always figuring, how can I do more for you? And Don, I love you for that, and thank you for that. And Teresa, you're the same way. But please more and more people run businesses like you. If you run your business from your heart, you're going to be successful.
Yes.
And that's what you guys do. And that's why I believe you have been successful and continue to do what you do, because we love what you're doing in the community. We love the work you do, but most importantly, we love being with you and your family, and your boys are incredible. I love seeing them when I come in as well.
Mm-hmm. We second that at Home of Hope. I mean, you guys have been there front and center since the beginning, and we go back to when I started the co-op, when we first met the new building
when
there.
We first went into business too.
Yeah, the first year. So appreciate and love you both dearly.
Thank you.
And it's amazing. We started this business 9 years ago. Wow, I think about that 9 years ago. And, it was only because of the fact that we didn't want to work for corporate America anymore, and because of a challenge from Teresa. She goes, if you really think you're that good, then go start a business. Little did I know the journey 9 years ago would end us where we're at today. But we also changed a lot of lives by the people that we hire. We have a lot of people. We've actually hired people during this current pandemic because we found good people. And we don't have all the work, but we'll find the work for them. We like to say that we've created 15 good-paying jobs in the Gwinnett community at this point in time, and it's one of those things that we created jobs. These jobs weren't there before. Our company is pretty much that, and so we continue to try to drive that, make the environment right for our people, make our people happy. Because at one point in time, I've told people this before. If you go to a job and you're miserable coming into a job, the odds are that you're going to go home being miserable and you're going to affect your family. Now, we're not Disneyland or Disney World, although we do have a couple of things at the office that we like to do to make fun and things like that. But we just try to treat people right and give them a good paying wage so that they can go ahead and contribute to the community themselves. And that's kind of what we're all about as well. You want to add?
No, not to that. You've pretty much summed that up. But what I thought was interesting as you all were talking is that I couldn't see a connection between both of your organizations. But what's really kind of cool is as we were talking, I realized you both started with a focus on children, but you also expanded that to the families, which is just as important. And I really like that, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, one other thing, Maureen, so I actually... it's funny. I've been looking lately. I went through our inventory of our event shirts and blankets and stuff that we have, and we're trying to look for an organization we can donate them to. And wow, now we got a place we can give them to.
Well, there you go. And we're right in Buford. I'm going to call you on my way back from this.
Okay.
I'm going to call
Great.
you.
I look forward to it.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, so much for joining us on Reaching the Summit, presented by Pinnacle Custom Signs. Get a more prominent look with your business signage. Visit us on our website at Pinnacle Custom Signs or on any of our social media channels to see how we can help your business reach the summit. Remember that you can enjoy any of our episodes anytime by visiting businessradiox.com, selecting the Gwinnett studio, and then click on Reaching the Summit. You can also find us on Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Until next time, for Don Conklin, I'm Teresa Conklin, and you've been listening to Reaching the Summit on Business Radio X, and I'd really like to thank both Maureen and Dave for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me as well.